Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al-Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al-Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Sudan's Rapid Support Forces announced on Friday that they have taken full control of Al-Nahud, the largest city in South Sudan's state of West Kordofan. The RSF victory has strategic significance, as Al-Nahud serves as a link between the war-torn Darfur region and other parts of the south. The RSF advance in Al-Nahud follows the Sudanese armed forces retaking the capital Khartoum in March and comes amid the ongoing RSF siege of North Darfur's El Fasher, where the UN says civilians are in dire need of assistance. My guest this episode is Al-Monitor's news reporter, Rosaleen Carroll. Rosaleen takes us through the significance of the RSF victory in Al-Nahud, the worsening humanitarian situation in the country, and why Sudan is worth paying attention to. Hope you enjoy. Rosaleen, welcome back to the Al-Monitor Brief.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. First question is basic one. What is the latest on Al-Nahud, and why is the Rapid Support Forces victory there important?
So on Thursday, the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, began its assault on Al-Nahud, which is a city in West Kordofan. And by Friday morning, videos were circulating on social media, purporting to show the RSF in the military headquarters of the Sudanese armed forces, who have now retreated from the city. This is a strategic victory for the RSF. Al-Nahud is a city that links the Darfur region, where the RSF has its stronghold, to the Kordofan state. So it's a logistical and transit hub, and equally importantly, it will likely help the RSF in its attempt to capture El Fasher, which is in North Darfur and has been under siege by the RSF for months and represents an important front in the war now.
And stepping back a little, how is the war progressing for both the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF, and where have each of them concentrated their efforts in fighting recently?
Yeah, so I think after Sudan's army recaptured Khartoum, Sudan's capital, back from the RSF, the scales seemed to have been tipping. But what we've seen since is the RSF turning its attention to southern Sudan and Darfur, where the group has its stronghold, like I said. And apart from the battlefield, there has been such little progress on the political front. You had in February the Transitional Sovereignty Council, which is the de facto leadership in Sudan and is led by Sudanese Army Commander Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. It announced that it was going to form a wartime or caretaker government and establish a new constitution. But that hasn't happened. And instead, we've seen Burhan move to consolidate military rule through changes to the constitution and effectively lessen the prospect of any power that a potential civilian government would have. And then on the other hand, right after Burhan's announcement, we saw the RSF announce its own parallel government. So we have two sides who are seemingly unwilling to budge and unwilling to cede any control, not just to each other, but also to any sort of civilian government. So on the whole, it doesn't really look like Sudan is moving towards any sort of resolution or peace here, but rather likely a protracted deadlock, both on the battlefield with the RSF consolidating its stronghold in the south and in Darfur, as well as the political sphere.
And another important question, what is the humanitarian situation in Sudan as a whole at present?
Well, the situation is dire. Both sides have reportedly targeted civilians, and both sides are accused of war crimes. I'd point most recently to the attacks in and around El Fasher on the Zamzam and Abu Shuk displacement camps, which have left hundreds dead. I think the UN human rights chief estimated yesterday that more than 500 civilians have been killed just in the past 3 weeks, but the true toll is likely higher. And then you have hundreds of thousands of people displaced just from El Fasher alone. And more broadly in the country, you have an estimated 11 million, likely more people internally displaced. And then I'd also point to an Amnesty report that came out last month about the use of sexual violence and rape against women and girls by the RSF. In Sudan, as in many conflict zones, sexual violence is being used as a weapon of war. And it's hard to track because it's often underreported. But Amnesty's report from April provides an important, if limited, view of what's going on in that respect.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Rosaleen Carroll after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision-makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25, for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Rosaleen, my last question is about kind of the bigger picture here. Sudan is a war that we cover at Al-Monitor, but doesn't seem to get as much attention as Gaza or Ukraine or some other conflicts. But what are some of the recent significant developments in this war that listeners should be aware of?
Well, I think besides what I've already mentioned, particularly in Al-Fashir, I think an underreported aspect of the war is what we've seen from people returning. There have been in recent months reports of hundreds of thousands, I think roughly 400,000 people returning to Khartoum, Sennar, and Jazeera. I believe there was a report from the International Organization for Migration on this. We've also seen over 100,000 return from Egypt, but they're returning in many cases to homes in areas that are in incredibly poor condition. And at the same time, just in the past week, the RSF has carried out attacks on the presidential palace in Khartoum, where many people are returning. So Khartoum and any SAF, Sudanese Armed Forces controlled area, is not quite out of the woods yet. And it's hard to say whether this pattern of return will continue and what the conditions are like for people who are returning.
Rosaleen, thanks a lot for your time and for your reporting on this.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Al-Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al-Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East and North Africa. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.